This is my presentation for Module 2. Some of the theories and concepts that stood out to me were mood congruent memory. So the idea that the mood we were in when the memory was recorded becomes a retrieval cue. So I see this a lot in my classroom, like maybe a student is upset about something, but then that upset triggers another memory that kind of encourages the behavior that we don't want to see in the classroom, but it's almost like it's not within the student's control exactly. So I thought that that was a really interesting concept in theory. I also think planning fallacy, active forecasting, impact bias, durability bias, all of that is really interesting to think about, especially as someone who struggles with ADHD and has students in my classroom who have ADHD, and just the impact that some executive functioning stuff can have on impact fallacy and active forecasting. Sometimes we're like really good, exceptionally good at planning fallacy. Like I can leave things at the very last minute and then have just enough time, or it can work against me pretty quickly too. And from 9 Things Educators Need to Know About the Brain, I thought it was really fascinating to think about the fact that conscious awareness and unconscious processing occur at different speeds, often simultaneously. So we can be aware of something, but we can't fully process what's going on until maybe like shortly after that happens. Those are some of the theories and concepts. So some of the teaching and learning strategies that I kind of grabbed from this module was the chameleon effect. The idea that individuals non-consciously mimic the postures, mannerisms, facial expressions, and other behaviors of their interaction partners. So as a teacher, I try to maintain my composure or maintain a level of calmness, and I've seen that work really well for me in my classroom. I think other students kind of can pick up on that and mimic that. In motivating students to learn, there are 2 things that I think pop up in my classroom a lot. The idea of building beliefs about intelligence, so how it's important to incorporate ideas that lead to growth mindsets, and also countering the idea of learned helplessness. Those 2 kind of go hand in hand. I directly see the impact of making sure my students feel empowered in their own intelligence and reassured that they belong in my classroom, that they're capable of the work that we're doing. Some of the things that I do to enforce that is just creating procedures in my classroom that are specific and that hopefully lead to growth mindsets. For example, I often so in this next slide I'll talk about that. But for the chameleon effect, some things that have worked is regulating the students, incorporating times for journal prompts. So during our journaling time, I'll often model kind of what I want the room to look and feel like, what I want journal prompts to look like, and try to maintain my composure, and that's often mimicked. Progression of asking for help. So this is what I was talking about previously, but I have a sequence for asking for help, so they have to read everything again. So like the instructions, they break the instructions down. They can talk to 2 people around them, they can Google it, and then they have to come up with a specific question that they need help with. And I think this really builds their confidence and their sense of capability and intelligence. Attempting counter impact bias, so matching expected outcomes with appropriate emotional responses. So attempting to counter impact bias. So a lot of times students can blow the impact of an assignment or a consequence or behavior out of proportion. So I also need to make sure that I am not blowing emotional responses or reactions out of the water, but I think it's important for students to be reminded of how small tasks are or how significant tasks are, depending on the nature of the task. Going further, I'd love to understand the idea of mood congruent memory as it relates to students wrestling with trauma in classrooms. I think that's a really important thing to understand, and it's something that I don't have a lot of knowledge about, but would like to build more knowledge about. So yeah, that is my overview of Module 2, and those are my references.